Well, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Wahibah Putri, and in this video, I would like to present material to complete my final project assessment of quantitative research methodology. Okay, without any further ado, let's move to the first slide. And in this slide, I will explain about program evaluation and evaluations research. This research is a quantitative approach that's focused on assessing whether an educational program's curriculums or policies activities its intended objective. Unlike descriptive research, this approach is explicitly evaluative, meaning it is designed to make judgments about effectiveness, efficiency, and the impact based on empirical evidence. At the graduate level, these topics require not only technical competence but also strong ethical responsibility. In practice, programs evaluations involves identifying programs goals, selecting measurable indicators, choosing appropriate evaluations designs such as formative or summative evaluations, and collecting quantitative data to assess outcomes. The statistical analysis is then used to compare expected result with actual result. And in EFL research, for example, a communicative language teaching programs can be evaluated by comparing students' speaking proficiency scores before and after the intervention. And this topic is closely related to the Al-Quran, principle of justice and accountability stated in Surah An-Nisa. The sound Innallaha ya'murukum an tu'addul amanati ila ahliha wa idha hakamtum bainan nasi an tahkumu bil 'adl. The meaning is, indeed, Allah commands you to render trust to whom they are due, and when you judge between people, judge with justice. Now, in this verse is highly relevant because the program evaluations is fundamentally about accountability and fair judgment. Educational programs are a form of trust, and the researchers are responsible for evaluating and uh, the object them objectively using valid evidence. The comments to judge with justice aligns directly with the requirements to base evaluations conclusions on data rather than personal bias or assumption. Programs evaluations and evaluations research is a very important because it enables researchers to make evidence-based decisions about educational practice and policies. These topics develops critical thinking, ethical judgment, and accountability. Without programs evaluations, educational interventions may continue without clear evidence or effectiveness, leading to wasted resources and ineffective learning outcomes. Well, we're gonna move to the next slide. Let's talk about research and development or R&D. Research and development is a quantitative research approach that's focused on developing, testing, and refining educational products or instructional models through systematic investigation. Unlike experimental research, R&D emphasizes continuous improvement and iterative revisions based on empirical data. This approach is particularly relevant in applied educational context. The R&D process typically includes several stages, such as um, analysis, product designs, prototypes development, field testing, revisions, and also final validation. Quantitative data are collected at each stage to evaluate effectiveness and usability. In EFL research, an R&D study may involve developing a digital vocabulary, learning applications, and testing its impact on student vocabulary mastery using pre and post tests. So this process aligns with Al-Quran, Surah Ar-Rad. It is sound Inna Allaha la yughayyiru ma biqaumin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim. The meaning is, indeed, Allah will not change the conditions of a people until they change what is within themselves. This verse is relevant because R&D emphasizes the intentional improvements through deliberate effort. Educational development doesn't occur automatically. It requires systematic planning, testing, and revision. The verse supports the idea that a meaningful change must be driven by the conscious action, and which parallels the evidence-based development process in R&D research. Research and development is very important because it bridges theory and practice. For graduate students, this topic develops innovations, skills, and problem-solving abilities. By mastering R&D, researchers can produce practical education products that respond directly to the real learning needs and contribute to sustainable educational improvement. Well, we're gonna move to the next slide. It's about reliability and validity in instruments developed. Reliability and validity are foundational concept in quantitative research because they determine the quality and the credibility of research instrument. Reliability refers to the consistency of measurement, while the validity refers to how um, accurately an instrument measures the intended construct. So, at the graduate levels, researchers must understand about concepts in depth to ensure the data quality and to establish the reliability. Researchers may use techniques such as internal consistency analysis, test retest reliability, and iterator reliability. And the validity is examined through content validations, constructs validations using factors analysis, and criterions related validation. And in this EFL research, for example, a questionnaire measure students' speaking anxiety must demonstrate a strong reliability and validity before it can be used in the main study. And in this topic, this align with Al-Quran Surah Al-Had. It is wa auful kaila wal mizana bil qisti wala tajhusul nas asya'ahum. The meaning is give full measures and with justice and do not reduce the balance. In this verse, it is directly relevant because it emphasizes accuracy and also the fairness in measurement. Just as inaccurate measurements leads to injustice in daily life, unreliability and unreliable and invalid. Instruments lead to misleading research finding. The first support the ethical responsibility of researchers to ensure precision and objectivity in data collection. Reliability and validity are very important because poor instruments undermines the entire research process. Even sophisticated statistical analysis lost their meanings if the data are inaccurate. Mastery of these topics ensure that the research findings are credible, ethical, and also scientifically sound. Next slide. We talk about experimental research. Experimental research is one of the most powerful approaches in a quantitative methodology because it allows researchers to establish cause and effect relationship. This approach involves manipulating an independent variable, controlling extraneous variables, and observing the effect on a dependent variable. At the graduate level, researchers must understand the different experimental design, such as true experiments and quasi-experiments as well. issues related to internal and external validity. And in EFL research, for example, a researcher may compare test-based language teaching with traditional instructions to examine its effect on students' writing accuracy. This methodology rigor is supported by hadith that narrated by At-Tirmizi. It is found, Ik, uh, I'kilha wa tawakkal. The meaning is tie your camel and then put your trust in Allah. This hadith is relevant because it emphasizes careful about the preparations before relying on outcomes. Experimental research reflects this principle through systematic planning, control of variables, and rigorous design before drawing conclusions about causality. Experimental research is very important because it provides strong empirical evidence for testing hypotheses and evaluating interventions. For graduate students, these topics develops advanced methodological reasonings and ensure the conclusion about the educational effectiveness are supported by robust data. Well, next slide about bivariate and multivariate analysis. These analyses are very essential statistical techniques used to examine the relationships among the variables. Bivariate analysis focus on relationships between two variables, while analysis examine the combined influence of multiple independent variables on the dependence variable. These techniques reflect the complexity of educational phenomena. Common procedures include correlations analysis, t-test, ANOVA, and multiple linear regression. In EFL research, multiple regressions may be used to examine how motivation strategies jointly influence reading's comprehension. And this analytical approach aligned with Al-Quran, Surah Al-Qamar. It is found inna kulla shay'in khalaqnahu bil qadar. Um, the meaning is, indeed, we have created all the things with the precise measure. This verse is very relevant because quantitative analysis is based on measurement, proportions, and structures relationships. It supports the idea that understanding reality requires systematics and precise analysis, which is the foundations of bivariate and multivariate technique. This topic is very important because it allows researchers to move beyond descriptions toward explanations and predictions. Multivariate analysis, in particular, enables graduate students to test complex model and produce meaningful evidence-based conclusion. Then finally, we talk about the conclusions for the last slide. In conclusion, there's five topic represent the core conceptual, methodological, and analytical foundations of quantitative research methodology. Together, they integrate research designs, measurement quality, and data analysis, ethical responsibility. Their applications in EFL research demonstrated strong practical relevance at the graduate level. The selected Al-Quranic verse and hadith are directly relevant and accurately interpreted, reinforcing key research values such as justice, accountability, accuracy, rigor, and evidence based reasoning. This integration shows that the quantitative research methodology can be conducted in harmony with Islamic ethical principles while maintaining high academic and scientific standard. Well, that's all of what I can explain to you what's materials. Thank you for listening. And the last I say wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.